Hey y'all, I'm Mandy.
I'm Carrie, and this is Monstrous. We're recording this one early.
Whoop whoop.
We have 6 days to get it edited so we can get it out on time.
Nice.
Hopefully we can stay on this track.
I know, right? Both of us working our asses off.
I know, God. Between work and everything else. Yeah, I didn't tell you, so I figured it up. Not including today, because today's a paid holiday for me. That's why I don't have to work tonight. I'm scheduled like 52 hours this week.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's
From
insane.
tomorrow to Saturday night.
That's why I don't miss working in a factory. I hated it. It was good money though.
Yeah, I mean,
Good
my job's
benefits.
not too bad. It just depends on the day. Tomorrow's probably going to be hell because it's a startup day.
Yeah.
And startup days are always shit. Okay, so I want to start this one by letting everyone know that this is an episode with trigger warnings, and I also advise for listener discretion. So, for anyone except you, Mandy, you have to stay.
Okay. Got it.
That is easily triggered or that cannot handle hearing a case that involves children, I would skip this episode. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to prepare themselves for if you decide to stay and listen to this week's episode.
Well, this is going to be a hard one, ain't it?
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Okay.
It only took 8 minutes for the lives of a family, an entire community, and the world as a whole to be changed forever. It took 8 minutes for a mother to lose her child, a boy to lose his sister, and only 8 minutes for a little girl to be in the hands of a monster. 28 years ago, the entire world learned how fast 8 minutes can change everything. This week, I'm going to tell you about the abduction and unsolved murder of Amber Hagerman and the legacy she left behind. Amber's case shook the nation, and in the end, changed how we search for missing children worldwide. Amber Hagerman was born on November 25th, 1986. And 9 short years later, her life was tragically cut short after a bike ride close to home that would become her last. On Saturday, January 13th, 1996, in Arlington, Texas, 9-year-old Amber was excited to ride her new pink and white bike that she had just gotten for Christmas a few weeks before. Her and her 5-year-old brother, Ricky, went running outside to ride their bikes together after their mother had told them that they could go out, but they had to stay around the block. The siblings left their grandparents' house where they were visiting at around 3:10 p.m. that day. The two had never ventured farther than 2/3 of a mile from where they were living. And that is the distance that they went on this day, even though they didn't live here. And they did this because they were drawn to the parking lot of an abandoned Winn-Dixie that had what her brother said was a cool ramp. And this was a common thing for the neighborhood kids to do. And for everyone that doesn't know what a Winn-Dixie is, it was a grocery store.
I was going to ask you, what is that?
Yep. It's called Winn-Dixie. It was kind of like somebody's going past on a motorcycle. Sorry for anybody that can hear that. It's kind of like a Food Lion or like a Hy-Vee or like a Piggly Wiggly kind of store. Yeah. It's just called Winn-Dixie.
Okay.
And it was abandoned. It wasn't open, but the neighborhood kids would use the parking lot to ride their bikes in. And some of them had set up like a makeshift ramp, and it drew Amber and her brothers to it.
Right.
So Amber made her way to the parking lot with her brother following behind her. He had decided to return home shortly after they arrived because he had remembered what their mother had told them. She told him she wanted to go down the ramp one more time and then she would be behind him. So he went home. When he got home without his sister, his family immediately went out looking for her. When they got to the Winn-Dixie parking lot, all they found was her pink and white bike and police officers at the Winn-Dixie who had come because they had received a 911 phone call of a girl screaming.
Oh, God.
So Jim Kevill, a 78-year-old retired U.S. Navy veteran and former sheriff's deputy who lived across the street from the parking lot that Amber and her brother were in, had called 911 because he had seen Amber be taken. So 8 minutes after Amber and her brother left their home to ride their bikes and do what kids do, she was abducted.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps.
At 3:18 p.m. on Saturday, January 13th, 1996, Jim Kevill had seen her abduction happen through his chain link fence. He told the police he had seen her riding in the parking lot. Then he seen a man in his 20s or 30s get out of the truck, grab Amber, and throw her into his truck, all while she was kicking and screaming.
Wow.
Kevill said the suspect was of mid-build, less than 6 foot tall. He had brown to maybe black hair. That the truck was a black single cab pickup with no chrome or striping, and it was in good condition. He said the man that took Amber was either white or light-skinned Hispanic. So it was close enough for him to see those details, but not close enough to get a very clear ID.
Right.
Kevill had given an interview to CBS 11 News in 2016, and he stated, quote, "I saw Amber riding up and down." He continued with, She was by herself. I saw this black pickup. He pulled up, jumped out, and grabbed her. When she screamed, I figured the police ought to know about it, so I called them." He had told the police how she had kicked and screamed, trying to get out of the man's grasp. Kevill said that she even tried to kick the man as he forced her into his truck. After witnessing her being forced into the man's truck, Kevill ran inside his home to call 911, and as he did, he saw the kidnapper pull out and head west on Abram Street. So following this call and the realization that a young girl was abducted, dozens of police officers and FBI federal agents fell upon Arlington to find the missing girl. According to the New York Times, the only time that anyone stopped their search was to take short naps to keep up their energy. But despite the quick efforts of every person in the Arlington area, the efforts of local and federal law enforcement, any hopes they had of her safe return were quickly gone. 4 days after she was abducted, a man walking his dog found Amber's body in a small creek ditch near a drainage culvert about 4 miles from where she was abducted near the Forest Hill Apartments in North Arlington.
Damn.
Police stated at the time that the maintenance workers for the apartments had been near where Amber was found just hours before she was discovered, and that they did not see her there. The Times had reported that a rainstorm that had come through had caused a rapid rise in the creek waters, and that this could potentially have caused her body to be carried down to where she was found at. So she was either placed there after the maintenance workers had been there just a few hours before, which it is possible. Any person that follows true crime knows that.
Right, exactly.
Or she was placed farther up and was carried down by the water. The autopsy revealed that Amber had been kept alive for at least 2 days.
Oh my God.
And what caused her death were deep cut wounds to her neck. So this next part is going to be rough to hear. Former Arlington police detective Randy Lockhart, who was at the scene of where Amber was found, said in an interview in 2021, quote, Amber was totally nude except for a sock on her left foot. We rolled her over and I caught her head in my hands, several lacerations to her throat. A knife or screwdriver had been used to rip her throat out.
Mm.
So, for anyone still listening, there is good that comes from this case, I promise. But before I can give you the what, you have to know the why. So before I go on to tell you the aftermath of Amber's tragic murder, I'm going to give everybody a minute to recenter themselves because I know there were some graphic things there that I just told you.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in.
Yeah. It's especially because she's a 9-year-old little girl.
I know. Those her parents, her family.
And she had just turned 9. A little over a month before
It's
she
so
was
sad.
abducted and killed. Yep. All right. So on January 13th, 2021, a press conference was held in Arlington in honor of Amber. It was announced that they were still searching for her killer and they asked for the public's help. There's currently a $10,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest of the one responsible. During this press conference, they released photos that have never been released before in hopes that it will gain leads. They announced that they will be doing DNA testing on evidence that was collected back in 1996 in hopes that it will give them answers to who did this. Sergeant Ben Lopez was present for this conference. He was on the original task force created after Amber's murder. He stated that this case has stayed with him throughout his entire career and that Amber's case has generated more than 7,000 leads, of which every single one of those leads have been investigated, but none of them have ever gotten them any closer to a suspect or an arrest. Investigators, however, believe more people out there know something. There was a laundromat next to the Winn-Dixie parking lot that Amber was taken from. And police believe that there are other witnesses out there that seen her abduction, but out of fear have not come forward. And they want everyone to know that those fears need to be put aside, that they are not concerned with anyone's immigration status. They just want answers. They want to give Amber and her family justice. So the area of Arlington that Amber was abducted from was of heavy Hispanic descent. In a 2000 census, only 4 years after Amber's abduction and murder, there were more than 330,000 Hispanic residents in Arlington. So the police's belief that there are more witnesses, but they're afraid to come forward because of their immigration status is not far from probably being very likely true.
Right.
But that's not something they're concerned about. They don't care what your status is. They want to bring her and her family justice. And that's all that matters to them. So someone out there somewhere knows something about Amber Hagerman's abduction and murder. Despite that it's been 28 years since her murder, 28 years that the person responsible has evaded police and gone unpunished, the Arlington Police Department remains dedicated to finding her killer. They continue to investigate every tip they receive. They remain in contact with multiple crime labs across the country to determine if forensic technologies are advanced enough to help the case. Police have stated that they have limited evidence in the case, but they hold hope that DNA technologies will one day help them catch Amber's killer. And now more than ever do they believe that they may finally catch who did this. Detective Grant Gilden from the Arlington Police Department stated, quote, "I want to make sure here today we believe this case will get solved. We believe there's no way this killer in this case could have committed the crime in the manner that they did without someone seeing, hearing, or having some knowledge of what happened." So I believe that this case will come to an end and this family will get answers. It's simply just a matter of time.
I couldn't imagine.
Just, yeah, I don't.
Like not having the answers.
I think that's what makes everything so much worse, and trying to put like yourself in the mind space of, you know, this happening, my kid just goes outside to play, that's it.
Right.
And then they're gone. That's not something that I think anybody could ever even attempt to put themselves in that situation.
Especially they were going out to ride their bike, something that they did all the time.
Yep. Just being normal kids.
Right. Something that you would never think would ever happen.
Nope. So now I'm going to tell you the legacy that Amber has left behind in the wake of everything. So statistics show that when a child is abducted, their greatest enemy is time. Time can mean the difference between life and death for every abducted child. So, following the abduction of Amber, a woman named Diane Simone had learned of her abduction and wanted to do something to help, but she wasn't sure what to do, like many people in the Arlington area at the time. Diane had heard about Amber's abduction on the evening news. They were showing a recent home video of Amber happily opening her Christmas gifts, holding up a Barbie doll, and then taking her new bicycle for a spin outside while waving and smiling. She decided to call a Dallas-Fort Worth radio station with an idea. She said, "We have weather and civil defense alerts, so why don't we have alerts for abducted children?" And eventually, her idea became a reality. So the Amber Plan was created in 1996 as a legacy to Amber Hagerman. The Dallas-Fort Worth Association of Radio Managers contacted local law enforcement in northern Texas, and they developed an innovative early warning system to help find abducted children. In 1999, 8 area TV stations joined in on the plan, and they began to send out urgent bulletins. Soon after, other states and communities developed and introduced similar plans until it was all over the nation. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the U.S. Department of Justice took on the responsibility for coordinating this plan to the national level. And so the Amber Alert was born. Amber bears Amber Hagerman's name, but stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response Alert System. So, at the direction of law enforcement, the alerts are first sent out to radio and television stations, the lottery, the Department of Transportation, and to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is also known as NECMEC. Then they send it out to a much wider audience. And now, with the ability to send these alerts to phones and other personal electronic devices, these alerts are sent everywhere, all in an effort to rescue abducted children before what happened to Amber happens to them. In 2003, the PROTECT Act was established, which gave the National Amber Alert a coordinating role in the Department of Justice. This gave access to federal, state, international laws and legal resources related to Amber Alert statuses, programs, and related child protection topics. So the Amber Alert has 82 plans within the United States, and the system is used internationally in 31 countries. So the same Amber Alert that we get on our phones,
Yeah,
31 other countries use that same system.
that's good.
And that's all because in 2003, just a few years after we began using Amber Alerts, the Protect Act was put in place. That gave other countries the access to the same system.
Good.
So the activation and criteria for an Amber Alert is followed strictly. This criteria includes law enforcement has to have reasonable belief that a child has been abducted. Law enforcement has to believe that the child is in imminent danger of serious injury or death. There's enough descriptive information about the victim and the abduction for the alert to be issued, which will assist in the recovery of the child. The abductee has to be 17 years old or younger, and the child's name and other critical elements have been entered in the National Crime Information Center. As of December 31st, 2023, so the end of last year, 1,200 children had been successfully recovered through the Amber Alert system.
That's insane. That's a
Yep.
lot.
Oh, yeah. The first child to be found and returned home was an 8-week-old infant named Riley Bradbury, who was abducted by her babysitter in 1998. She was found 90 minutes after the alert went out.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Amber's case has also inspired something else. It inspired Governor Ricky Perry to create the Amber Alert Network per Executive Order RP-16 within Texas in 2002. This was later codified through legislation in 2003. And 20 years later, Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation authorizing the local area activation of the Amber Alert system under certain circumstances in honor of Athena Strand, who was abducted and murdered in 2022. So, so this is not a separate alert system. A lot of people think it is. It's not a separate alert system. It's still the Amber Alert, but it's a law that is tied to the Amber Alert. So it's called the Athena Alert Law. And this law allows law enforcement to request the activation of an Amber Alert if they know that the child is missing, but the previously mentioned criteria has not been verified. So in Athena Strand's case, that was the little girl in Texas that was abducted by a FedEx driver from her front yard. Do you remember that case?
Yes, I do.
Yep. That is her. And they knew she was missing, but they were not able to verify all the Amber Alert requirements. So because of that, an Amber Alert didn't go out.
Damn.
After her abduction and murder, the governor signed the Athena Alert Law, which says under certain circumstances, they know the child's missing, they know the child is in danger, you can send out an Amber Alert. So Amber's mother, Donna Williams, has stated that she is extremely proud of the alert that bears her daughter's name. She stated, quote, "It saved children's lives. It's helped bring children back to their mommy and daddies. It's another legacy for my daughter that she did not die in vain. She is still taking care of our little children like she did when she was here." But she also says, quote, "I miss her every day, and she's just so full of life, and I want to know why. Why her? She was only a little girl."
Oh, that makes me want to cry as a mom.
I know, it makes me want to cry. Because you could just feel her pain, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, so, despite the lack of answers in Amber's own case, she has had a massive impact on other missing children through the Amber Alert system, which we would not have today if it had not been for Amber Hagerman. Though Amber Hagerman's killer has never been found, the impact of her disappearance has resonated for decades and will continue to resonate for decades to come. Without the one witness account of Jim Kevill, who has since died, we would have nothing to go on. No suspect, no car description, no events that took place that day in that parking lot, and nowhere to even begin to look for Amber's killer. But thanks to him, we have a suspect and vehicle description. The suspect is believed to be a white or Hispanic male. As of 1996, he would have been in his 20s, possibly 30s at the latest. He's under 6 foot tall. He's of medium build and either has brown or black hair. In 96, he would have been driving a black, full-sized fleet side pickup truck, and it was either a 1980s or 1990s model. Has a short wheelbase. It's a single cab. The rear window was clear, had no sliding window, so it was just one full sheet of glass. No chrome on the truck whatsoever, so it's just solid black. No striping on the car, and the truck was in good condition with no visible damage to it. Without Jim Kevill coming forward and calling the police, we would not have either of these descriptions. And all they need to close her case, to find her killer, is for anyone else to come forward, to say what they saw. So, for anyone that has any information, we ask, the Arlington police ask, that you call Arlington, Texas police. I'm going to put these phone numbers in the description along with on our Facebook page as well. So that way, if you're driving and listening to this, you don't have to try to write it down really quick. You can call the police at 817-575-8823. And for anyone that wants to remain anonymous, then you can call Crime Stoppers at Tarrant County at 817-469-8477. And that is the abduction and murder of Amber Hagerman and her legacy.
That's a sad one.
Oh, it's one of those that it's hard to read about. It's hard to type it out and figure out how to tell it without being insensitive to the topic.
Right.
But it's also one that I think people should know about. People should know about how the Amber Alert system came to be.
Oh, I agree. I think
Because
it's a good one.
Yeah, because it wasn't, a lot of people think that it was just a system they came up with. Like, now we have DNA systems and, all of this stuff. But like I told Mike, the Amber system, like a lot of other systems that are similar to this, came from the fact that someone else had to die for it to become a reality.
Right.
Like there was Adam Walsh. His abduction. So it's the Adam Walsh Act. It's to protect children from sexual exploitation sexual exploitation and violent crime. So Adam Walsh, if I remember correctly, he was like 8 or something like that, and he was abducted and killed by a child predator. So the Adam Walsh Act put steps in place so jurisdictions could monitor the whereabouts of sex offenders. That didn't
Right.
happen until after he was kidnapped and killed.
Right.
So there's a lot of systems that we have now that at one point in time weren't in place, and I think that's something that a lot of people forget about. Like, I didn't realize until I was going through all of this and, putting everything together, that I'm 2 years older than the Amber Alert system.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's not something that you think about,
No.
because as far back as I can remember, there's always been an Amber Alert. So I even forget sometimes that there were a time that this stuff that everyone depends on every single day wasn't around. It's crazy that it takes, something like this, something tragic, a family to lose their child, for these things to be put in place.
Right.
Like, nobody is proactive and like thinks ahead.
And that's sad.
Like, I know it was a different time then. Like, I know that. But it's still, though, I'm like, based off of history, we need to be proactive and think of things. Okay, what do we not have now that we could potentially need to use in the future?
Right.
It's crazy. How the whole system works is just, it just baffles me sometimes. That's what they did with the Athena Strand case. The network per executive was put into place 20 years before it was signed into legislation. So somebody was like, you know what, we need to put this right here in place just in case we can't verify this information, or what if we know a child has been abducted but don't have a vehicle description or a suspect description. We still need to get the information out there that there's a kid missing. But it took 20 years for them to sign it into legislation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's what, I guess I didn't explain that very well, did I? So in 2002, the governor of Texas at that time created the Amber Alert Network per Executive Order, RP16. And that's what that was. So that executive order, which was then codified in 2003. So codified, that means like it was signed into legislation. It's was done with the Texas Department of Public Safety. So it's just a Texas statewide thing. It's not a national wide thing, which it should be. But they were given legislative authority to coordinate with the state's Amber Alert network. So that way, if, they weren't able to give a car description or a suspect description, they couldn't verify the requirements for a full nationwide Amber Alert, they would be able to issue what's called a regional alert. So they would be able to put an alert out just statewide. Hey, this kid is missing. This is what, they look like. This is what they were seen wearing. All of that just for their state rather than nationwide. But it took them 20 years after Athena Strand's murder for it to be actually put into legislation and signed in as a law, because they put it in there in 2003, but it wasn't issued in as a law. So it wasn't something that they had to do.
Right.
Which I'm like, well, I don't know. This governor was proactive about it. Governor Rick Perry, and was like, you know what? There may be a time that we may need this, but because of the criteria that has to be met, we may not be able to use it. So let's put something in place that says we can still use it under these circumstances right here. And then 20 years later, when they could have used it because they knew Athena Strand was missing, they knew she was abducted, but because they didn't know by who, they couldn't issue the Amber Alert. Then they want to sign it into law. I think you're a little late.
I agree with you. I totally agree.
It's awful that stuff like this has to happen in order for these laws and these acts and these systems to be put in place. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't take that. Have you ever seen a picture of Amber Hagerman?
I don't think so.
Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm sitting.
Aww. Look at her.
She's so cute.
She is, isn't she?
And she had like the classic 90s at the eyebrow bangs. The little
So cute.
Yep, that's it. The creation of the Amber Alert.
That was a good one.
Well, thank you.
Very informative. That's how you say it.
Yeah.
And that's the word for the day.
The monstrous word of the day.
Yes, informative.
Yes. Can you give us the definition?
Information.
Can
You
you
gave
spell it?
What? Information? I can spell information.
No, I said informative.
Informative.
Yep, good job.
Look
You
at
got it.
me. I got an A+ today.
Yes, you did.
Woohoo!
See, hanging out with me, you're learning stuff.
I know, right? You're the big
I'm
talker.
I'm just making you smarter every day.
I know. Look at that. Woohoo!
Oh, God. All right. So if we don't have anything else.
No.
Nope.
Watch for monsters.
And don't kill people.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Please be sure to rate and review so we can make sure we give y'all a podcast you love. Be sure to subscribe so you get notifications each week when episodes air.
If you want to send us a case or a topic suggestion, you can email us at monstroustcpod@gmail.com.
Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page for updates along with information and photos for each week's episodes.